you, James?
I'm doing well. How you
Are
doing?
you
Nice to see you.
exhausted? What is happening?
I'm always like getting the hang of like Mondays and Tuesdays for me has always been the thing. It's like you sometimes the weeks are like one long day where I change clothes. And, over the weekends, like people have a tendency to have just complete meltdowns when they're getting divorced. So like Monday morning just always comes like just a slap in the face. Like it just shows up. But Tuesday, you're still cleaning up the messes. So.
Oh, totally. And like your clients, I'm sure they don't totally respect your time. In the sense that
they just have no boundaries. I think what happens is, like when you're in any kind of crisis, and like someone... I very much appreciate the fact that like I feel like a North Star for some of these people. Like I'm like this stable presence when everything feels terrifying. So, I mean, even when I've like bought or sold a property and I have a real estate lawyer, you're like the 5 minutes that you're waiting for the callback to see if they signed the contract on the other side, like feels like eternity. And that's like not even that crazy important as things like custody and visitation. So I get it. You know what I mean? Like I absolutely get why they feel the way that they do. But yeah, I mean, it after a while of it, because I start my day at 4 a.m. So by about 5, 6 o'clock, I've been at it for like 13, 14 hours.
That's a lot.
And it requires me to do a lot to like, of self-care. Like I make a point every morning of like first thing going to the gym. I have to, I eat very healthy. I really do try to get solid sleep. I try to do all the things you can do to sort of mitigate the effect of all of that stress. And I don't really let that stress inside of me. I don't really let myself like kind of get into the tizzy that the clients get into. And I think they like that because I think that clients, like I used to say to people, now my sons are adults, but when they were little, I used to say to people, listen, I'm going to be a little unemotional when I'm working with you. And don't take that personally. It doesn't mean that I don't care. I was like, but if one of my kids was sick and the doctor came in and went, oh my God, your kid is so sick, what are you going to do? I don't want that doctor. Like, I don't want that doctor. I want the doctor who comes in and goes, all right, here's what we're looking at. Here's our best case scenario. Here's our worst case scenario. Because like I'm emotional in that situation. I need someone to be totally unemotional and rational and clear-headed because I feel out of control. So I just really take very seriously, that's what my clients need from me. And I think after 25 years of doing this, I've just got to the point where very, very little rattles me emotionally. I'm very good at staying very level, even in very, very chaotic situations. So.
I sometimes when I work too much or when I'm like, because I have kids and a husband and a business, and, and sometimes I just feel like I'm floating above myself. It's like there's so much stress and anxiety that you just like are almost disconnected.
Yeah,
you
almost
shut
down.
Moments?
I do. Yeah, I do. And I find when that happens, I'm actually a lot less effective. So I really try to, when I feel that starting in me, like I really try to make a point of putting myself in the list of priorities, like I always have to say to clients, because, narcissists is like the big buzzword everybody says now. Anyone who disagrees with you is a narcissist. Like everyone's a narcissist now.
Right.
And I always try to tell people there's like sort of a spectrum of self-interest, and like on the far extreme, you have malignant narcissists. And believe me, as a divorce lawyer who represents very wealthy people, I've seen my share of malignant narcissists and their spouses. And, that is a thing. And then there are people that like are just, typical narcissists. Like they are the sun around which the whole universe has to revolve. And they look at themselves as the center of everything. And then you have people that are just selfish, that they make themselves the number one priority most of the time. But people automatically think selfishness is a bad thing. And I always try to tell my clients, particularly women, I have to tell a lot of my female clients, that there's a difference between being selfish and being self-interested. Like you kind of have to be a little self-interested. Like you love your kids and it's wonderful that you want to give a lot to your kids. But part of like taking care of your kids is taking care of yourself.
Yep,
part of being a good parent is having self-interest.
I first became familiar with you when I heard you on Diary of a CEO.
Sure,
and you actually cried about your dog. But I
did. And it was really funny. I feel like Steve Bartlett, who I've now had 2 conversations with, and we've become friends, so we've had a bunch of off-mic conversations too. I think he's like the new Oprah in that, remember there was a time where like everyone would cry on Oprah?
Oh, yeah.
You know, like they would
Oh,
just,
yeah.
people would come in and they would just like start with and I had done a whole lot of media and I'd never cried. And I sat down with Steven and somehow the topic of dogs came up. And we got into this it was like the first time I ever cried on camera. It wasn't the last. I mean, I think once you kind of cross that boundary, it's like, all right, I guess you're just going to be authentically yourself and you just let that stuff flow. But yeah, I mean, that discussion, because he has an elderly dog and I have 2 elderly dogs, and it just turned into a discussion about impermanence and you know, which is always very present in my mind, not just from as someone who has dogs and they're elderly, but also just as someone who works in the clay of relationships ending and prenups, you know, and people starting relationships, many of which statistically we know are going to end in divorce, you know, all of which are going to end somehow, whether it's in death or divorce. So it was a really beautiful conversation, but it really seemed to resonate with people, particularly dog owners. I think there's a unique dog and cat, you know, pet owners have this very unique insight into the nature of how like love is loaned to us. It's not permanently gifted, you know, and I think if there's a message that God's trying to send us by sending us these little creatures that are just so full of love and have no agenda other than to love us and making their lifespan like 1/10 of ours, you know, is brutal. To say that's something about, but I think it's a message. I think it's a message about how we shouldn't take any of it for granted. Right. You know, I mean, your kids are younger than mine. And I will tell you, like, I think about all the time now that I have like adult sons that, you know, like there was a last time I was called daddy.
Oh, that is a big thing in our house. I'm like, you can call me whatever you want around your friends or in public. Yeah. But when we're home and the doors are closed, I am mommy to you.
Yeah. But you know, the day's going to come where you're going to be mom or ma.
I call my dad daddy still.
That's good. But, you know, women can do that. I have to tell you, I my partner, you know, who's in her 40s, calls her dad and calls him daddy. And it's like, you know, yeah, like there is something that about daughters and fathers in particular, I think that's permissible. And
well, I'm here to tell you. But yeah, I mean,
boys my sons call their mom ma or mom. And at some point she stopped being mommy. And, you know, at some point, like I was daddy. And then one day I became dad, you know, and, you know, if someone had said to me, like when it happened, oh, by the way, that's the last time your kids are ever going to call you daddy, I would have wept. I would have absolutely cried, you know, but it just happens. It just happens. And like, you don't notice that it happened, you know, but it did. And, you know, to me, I think when we keep that in our awareness, I think we live differently. Like, I think we live in a way that's much more deliberate and much more conscious. So I try to let my work, rather than depress me, I try to have it inspire me in the same way that you know, knowing that, you know, my dogs, for example, won't be with me forever. I try to have that inspire me to like really savor the fact that it's there right here and now and that it's present, you know.
What you said something about how, because you really seem like the least likely person who would become a divorce attorney. Tats all over your arms, like super into jujitsu.
That part, yes. Yeah,
I mean, like part. Really, like you're fully tatted.
Yeah, I'm covered. Yeah, and not just my arms. I have full sleeves, my back. I'm pretty much like 90% of me's tattooed.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think when I first saw that, I thought like, what? That's like one of America's #1 divorce attorney. So like, there is this like sort of kind of paradoxical idea there. And also like from what I read, you're agnostic or atheist.
Yeah. I mean, I have a conflicted relationship with my faith. I was raised extremely religious. I was raised very, very Catholic. I went to Catholic school my whole life. And I was only allowed to watch movies on the Vatican approved list. I mean, my mom was like a devout Catholic. And I was an altar server, an acolyte, you know, what we used to call an altar boy. And I loved church. I loved going to church. I was a big piece of it. And then I did what a lot of people do when they go off to college. I rebelled against it and was like, now I'm an atheist. And I was like a hardcore atheist. And then I think, you know, my kids were born and I started to sort of lean back into faith again a little bit. And I would say I have, you know, I would say I'm an agnostic, but I think it's a term that people misuse. Like an atheist and a devout religious person both have a certainty about them. And I think a person who's a true agnostic sort of says, well, I just don't know. You know, I I want to believe, I want to believe in God. I want to believe in some of these wonderful concepts, like my mom passed about 9 years ago, and I'd love to think that, I'll see her again, and that, that everyone we love is, that we'll be reconnected with them in some way. But I also think that, perhaps us trying to understand the nature of God is like an ant trying to learn physics. Like, there's a sort of hubris to thinking we could understand it with our little human brains. So, I have a tremendous reverence for faith. I'll say that. But yeah, I think I'm full of a lot of contradictions. I've lived I'm 53 and I've lived, I think, a very interesting life. I grew up in martial arts. I grew up in fighting. All the tattoos are really kind of the last markers of what was a very sort of rough and tough kind of persona. And, I don't think anyone would have thought I was going to be a professional. I think most people would have thought I was going to be the guy on the cell block who knew how to get you stuff. I don't think anybody expected much of me. I was a straight C student. I was never a good student. I was never ambitious career-wise. But I discovered debate when I was in high school, largely as a function of trying to get laid. There was a girl on the debate team who was really pretty. She ended up actually becoming she was my first girlfriend. And I remember I just was like, oh, like she does debate. I don't even know what that is, but I'll take it up because I'll get to hang out with her. And I discovered I was really good at it. And I took the team of my school to like the state championships in my first year. And just because I'm very fast on my feet verbally and I'm very good at engaging argument. And I realized it was very similar to what I was doing all the time, which is fighting. Like fighting on a mat, like fighting in a cage, fighting in the martial arts context, in the combat sense, is the same thing. It's about anticipating the other side's movements. It's about offense and defense at the same time. Like we both know what the other person's trying to do. And the goal is to try to stop them from doing it and impose your will on that person. And it's just an intellectual way of doing that debate. It's really just chess, either with your body or with your mind. Right. And so it suited me. And I went to law school to be a divorce lawyer because I thought that it's the only area of law that was really interesting to me. The idea of being like a highly paid proofreader seemed really boring. And I kind of love the human element of it. I kind of love the very, like you're dealing with real problems. And I jumped right into it. I never went into it for the money. I never went into it to represent famous people. I really thought, if I just get to be in a courtroom making the argument, I'll be happy. And I never meant for my career to go the way that it went. And I feel blessed that it has. I get to represent amazing people, fascinating people. And I represent a lot of celebrities. I represent a lot of athletes. I represent a lot of very high-end people in finance because I'm based in New York, and New York is obviously like the seat of finance. And then I represent a lot of really normal people, just typical people. Because the beauty of having, managing a firm is I can represent anybody I want to. So I represent,
you're the boss.
Big people, and I represent very typical people. And I think it's kind of fun to do both,
Here's a question that I don't understand why. And I know I've heard you talk about the 10 Commandments, and 2 are like, don't be adulterous. And
don't sleep with other people,
Right. But like, why today is cheating still such a hot button issue? And like, how many people are actually getting divorced for that sort of thing? Adultery.
It's a great question. Here's what I'll tell you. I think the overwhelming majority of divorces, cheating is implicated. The question is like the chicken or the egg question is what jumps in, which is the cheating a side effect of a broken marriage, or is cheating what causes the broken marriage? And I think a lot of people take some comfort in thinking that the cheating caused the marriage to fail, because then it's not your fault. Right. It's this painted Jezebel who stole your husband, or it's your husband for being a philanderer or can't, keep it in his pants. Yeah. And it gives you a good guy and a bad guy. Right. And anytime somebody tells me the story of their life and they're the hero of the story, I'm always a little skeptical. Because I kind of know in my own life, like I'm a hero and a villain depending on when you look at me. And I'm rarely blameless. And like very often, like people don't have horns or a halo. It's like we kind of have a little bit of both, know.
Exactly.
But I think cheating, to me, look, it's very human to want affection. It's very human to want sex. I think cheating isn't always about sex. I think it's about desire and about being desired. You know, I think when we think about like the early days of a relationship, there's something about we feel interested and we feel interesting at the same time.
Totally.
And there's something so cool about that, like feeling so interesting and feeling so fascinating and desired. And, you know, no man's a hero to his butler, right? Like you see somebody every single day, you know, of course they're still special to you, but the like fascination of that person, of course it's normal, you know, that those things kind of wane.
Yeah, of course. And like, it's so funny to hear even my husband who's like, you know, like, passion. I want you to be as passionate about this relationship as you were from day one. And I'm like, you mean after the laundry list of things I have to... But you often hear that when people go on a trip together, couples, like they're able to reignite that excitement because it's just the two of them and they're in a better environment.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's so normal, right? Because a marriage is so many things, right? Like your parents together, your roommates, your financial partners, like you're all of these very distinct connections to each other, right? But the thing that makes you as a couple, right? The thing that makes it a marriage as opposed to being roommates or as when people run in a daycare center together is sex, is romantic attraction.
Right.
You know, so it's really, really, I think, important and it's totally understandable that it's not easy. But it's really important to remember that you are that to each other, right? Like in your marriage, you can have somebody else cook for you. You know, you can pay somebody to cook for you. You can pay somebody to do your laundry. You can pay people to watch your kids to some degree. But you're really not supposed to delegate, you know, sexuality and physical connection in a relationship. It's really supposed to be something in a traditional monogamous relationship. It's supposed to be something you reserve for each other. So I feel like, you know, if you have to, in my book, I talk about, you know, most people, if they're not having their needs met or they aren't expressing their needs in a relationship, you either have to go without or go elsewhere. And neither of those is a good choice.
Correct.
Like neither of those is a sustainable choice. So I think that it's really important for people to look, everyone has lots of good, it's like exercise. There's always good reasons not to exercise. Like there's 50 million things I could do in the morning other than exercise. I could do so much with that time. But there's also, it's really, really important to do it. And it's going to actually feed all the other things in my life. I'm going to feel better. I'm going to sleep better. I'm going to work better. I'm going to focus better. I'm going to eat better.
For men, they love it. Like I could get my husband to do the dishes any day of the week as long as I'm being consistent in bed with him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And, you know, I have to tell you, I genuinely believe that even to take, like, sex is a huge piece of it, but I think that there are these little things we can do for each other in relationship that aren't a big investment, but that pay like a big investment. You know, one of the pieces of advice I give to a lot of my male friends, particularly married male friends, is I said, leave your wife a note in the morning. Just leave her a note, just like a little note. Just takes 30 seconds just to leave her. Hey, it was so fun watching Netflix with you last night when the kids went to bed. I married the prettiest girl in the world. Can't wait to be home tonight and see you again. What does that take? 30 seconds? But what does it do? I see you. I still think you're beautiful. I'm thinking about you. I want you to feel seen. I want you to know I'm thinking of you. That is that is the equivalent of sending your husband a nude picture in the middle of the day. It really is. Like a love note.
Too.
For men, it's the equivalent of leaving us a love note. It really is. It's the equivalent of leaving us a love note to send us a naked picture. Because to us, it's like you're special to me. You're attractive to me. I want to be attractive to you. I want to be an object of your desire. I want you to desire me. I understand your desire and I like it. Like, these are all great messages to send to your partner, especially, like I said, if you're in a long-term committed relationship, and especially if you have all of those wonderful distractions in your life, like laundry and dishes and a house to take care of and kids to chase around and deal with.
Right.
That's a great reason to keep your connection really strong, because doing those things with a partner is just so much better than trying to do them by yourself, you know?
Okay, so like you're obviously at this point a relationship genius, expert, yet you're not married, but you have a girlfriend. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And every time I hear you on a show and you're like, nope, nobody needs marriage. I'm like, no, You're hurting your own business there. But
I'm fine with that. I mean,
I'm joking.
I don't think people need to get the government involved when they're happy in a relationship.
Well, what about like your girlfriend right now? Does she have a problem with that, or would you consider ever getting married again?
You know, I've never said I'm against marriage. I have never said I would not get married again. I think if you have a prenup, getting married is a very sane thing to do. And I jokingly say that, you know, getting married is like playing it's like playing the lottery. You're probably not going to win. But if you win, what you win is so good that it's absolutely worth it to buy a ticket. So why not, right?
And what are the odds now? Is it 50%?
I mean, roughly 56% of marriages end in divorce. But I think that's a misleading statistic because how many people are unhappy and stay together for the kids or because they don't want to give away half their stuff? So I think the fail rate of marriage, if you ask me, is well over 70% probably. And that's an unbelievably grim statistic because, and again, it doesn't mean people shouldn't have pair bonds. It doesn't mean they shouldn't have monogamous long-term relationships. It doesn't even mean people shouldn't get married. It just means for me, and that's sort of an answer to your question, it's worth asking, why are you getting married? So, like, there are good reasons to get married. People say, oh, I'm getting married because there's tax benefits to it. It's a fine reason to get married. I want to be on this person's health insurance. Fine reason to get married. I'm religious, and it's important to me in the context of my religion to get married. Absolutely fine with me. That makes a lot of sense. My parents really want me to get married. It's important to them. Good reason. If you want to please your parents and you love your parents and that's an important priority for you, okay, there's things we do for people that we love. It's really important to my girlfriend or my boyfriend that we get married. Perfectly good reason. I really want to throw a super big party and have everyone I know there, and I don't want the first time everyone I love to be in a room to be my funeral. I'd like it to be while I'm alive and can enjoy it. Great reason. Great reason. My son's getting married. My son's getting married in a couple of months. I can't wait to go. It's going to be a great party. I can't wait.
Oh, my God.
But if you say to me, I'm getting married because I want my love to last forever, getting married actually has almost nothing to do with guaranteeing that result. Or I want to get married because I really want to have a great sex life with this person for the rest of my life. Get married, like the government, signing up with the government has very little to do with that. Like there's no proof out there that getting married will facilitate that outcome. I want to get married because I don't want to be lonely. I don't know that getting married guarantees you're not going to be lonely. And by the way, I don't know that that's a problem you should try to solve by getting married. Maybe it's a problem you should look at and think about why is it you're so afraid of being alone in any capacity. So I just think it's odd that something that fails so often and it's so painful when it fails, that it's considered strange when someone says I'm getting married. It's considered rude to say, really, why?
Did you ask your sons that?
You know, I think the answer was sort of self-evident. I think it was important to his fiance. He's a lawyer, she's a lawyer. They both, you know, felt pretty strongly about, you know, getting married and having a family together. And they both are realistic, you know, and they both are pragmatic, and they were very open about, we'll do a prenup, of course. And you know, I think marriage, like I said, I'm a fan of marriage. I think marriage is a wonderful thing. My parents were married for over 50 years and their relationship, you know, made both of their lives better. I think that they were both better for the connection that they had together. I'm not against being married. I was married. I'm divorced. You know, I was married to the mother of my kids for 10 years. And I think I was a better man for having had that connection to her. And I'd like to think I made her life better. I know we gave each other two great kids that we've had a wonderful time parenting. And she's a dear person to me. I can't wait to see her at the wedding. You know, she lives quite far away now, and she's been remarried for a long time to a great guy who I'm very, you know, I feel very fortunate to have as part of my family. My extended family now.
I'm like,
you know,
trying to search for where's the lie in any of that. No, I'm kidding. But
no,
you're just evolved. And the thing is, there are those kinds of families where they've gotten past the nonsense and the anger and the hurt.
Listen, there's a lot of people I love I wouldn't want to be married to. Like
course.
I love my son's mom. She's great. I met her when I was 18 years old, and she was 18 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen, I had a motorcycle and cool tattoos and long hair, and she had, pretty blonde hair and big boobs. Like, what more could you need in life? When you're 18, that's all you need. We had like friends in common. We liked the same music, and we were good in bed together. Like, what more could you possibly need?
But like, honestly, that's a great jumping off point. All of those similarities.
At the age of 18, it was a great jumping off point. And we had some really fun, great years together. We were broke. We both came from complicated families. And we were each other's like support system. But in a good relationship, it's kind of like a Venn diagram. There's like you and your interests, there's your partner and their interests, and then there's some overlap, We just had nothing else in common. Like, we don't like any of the same things. If you asked us, where do you want to go on vacation? We would pick total opposite places. If you said, what show do you want to watch on TV? We would pick opposite shows. We had almost nothing in common. And we both, when we ended that relationship, meaning the marriage part of it, we still have a relationship. We still have a lot of love for each other, and we're co-parents to two men. But we both went on to find people that were a lot different than each other, but that made us happy. And so, like, it gives me great joy to see her happy. And the guy who she's with is absolutely nothing like me.
Well,
like, we have totally different.
I don't consider that a failed relationship at all, which
me
a lot
either.
of people do.
Me
that
either.
was hugely successful. And
very successful. Any relationship that you leave, I think I think we do ourselves a terrible disservice to look at relationships like this person's either your soulmate or it's a failure.
Right. I mean, that's not realistic in my opinion.
I think that you should look at it as chapters in a long book.
Oh, 100%.
And my chapter with her was beautiful. It was filled with love. My sons were conceived and born in love. And we have continued to really honor our love for each other by being supportive towards each other as parents. And look, she still knows I have her back. I will always have her back. I know that the successes I have in life are in part rooted in the way she supported me and was there for me at a time when there was no profit in it. And I know she feels the same way about me. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I that's a truly sincere sentiment. And I think we have to change the narrative about, endings of relationships, beginnings of relationships, the economy that is a relationship. I just think there's something really wonderful about being honest with ourselves and each other about relationships. And I think our society is really into like the glossy lie of things. And I'm not quite sure why, because I think that the like less glossy, a little more messy truth is actually even more beautiful as far as I'm concerned. Well, in a way,
and I have you only a limited time because I know you're a busy man, but I want to get to a couple quick things. But I want to say this in a way. Weddings are bittersweet in my opinion, because it's like you are kind of blindly going into these relationships, especially as a young person, thinking, oh my God, I'm madly in love. It's always going to be like this. And then life sets in years down the road. So I just like, we're almost, right, as people who are married or are married, look back and go like, brace yourself. It's not all good, but I'm not. Okay, let me switch gears for a second, because we talked about prenups, and the way I know you from, I guess on a more personal level is through our good friend Shane Farley.
Yes.
You were good friends with and now is a business partner of yours in Trusted Prenup. So I want to talk about Trusted Prenup. It's such a cool idea, because you're making it accessible for really the masses. So can you tell me?
We wanted to democratize prenups. We really wanted to, one of the things that I've watched happen in the last 10 years is how and I think society is better for it, is that we democratized mental health. There was a time where like the only people that had therapists were people that had like a bunch of money that they could spend on a therapist. And suddenly with telehealth and a lot of online services like, BetterHelp and all those other ones, people have the ability to like connect with a therapist, and they're not tied to geography. It's become more affordable. It's become something that really democratized mental health and wellness. And to me, our society is better for that. And I really think there are certain things that like in a civilized society, in the best version of our society, there are certain things that everyone should have access to. And I got really, really tired of watching people, because people would say, well, I don't, need a prenup. I don't have anything. And I would actually say that's the best time to have a prenup, is when you're at that beginning stage, when you're at the seed, not the full grown tree. And it's really, really great to create a rule set. And what I always try to say to people is every marriage has a prenup. It's either one that's written by the government, and it can be changed by the government without your permission and without even your knowledge. Or it's one that you and your partner, this person that you've said out of the 8 billion options in the world, that's the person I'm picking. You get to make your rule set. It's your relationship. It should be your rules. And I think in a world where, the roles of men and women have changed so much and marriage equality has happened. So now gay and lesbian individuals can marry. Like we no longer have this outdated patriarchal concept of what marriage is supposed to be, where a woman goes from her father's home and she is given away to her husband and now he's her property. We threw all that out the window a while ago, and yet we still have all these institutions that are kind of built around that model. And I think what we're trying to do with Trusted Prenup is essentially say to people, listen, there's a rule set that's going to govern your marriage. Why don't you and your partner write it? Why don't you and your soon-to-be spouse write it? You've picked each other out of 8 billion people. You've committed to each other. Don't be afraid to have hard conversations. Look, you've been married long enough to know if you can't have hard conversations, you got no business marrying somebody. Like you and your husband have had hard conversations. Anybody who's married, particularly married with children, you've had to have hard conversations.
Right.
And your ability to navigate a hard conversation, and ideally, after it, look at each other and go, hey, we did a pretty good job. Look at that. Like that was kind of hard and we did it. Like we can do hard things together.
And we have a prenup.
Yeah, and your prenup. That's great.
By the way,
great.
And when
we need to destigmatize prenups. Like the truth is, we put on Instagram, we're picking the cake, we're picking the dress, say yes to the dress, all the things around. But we don't like talking about prenups. It's almost as if it's like saying Voldemort. You say it and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, we've doomed the marriage. We got to normalize prenups. We got to say, it's just, there was a time I remember where if you said, oh, my therapist, I was saying to my therapist the other day, and everyone would look at you like, oh, what the hell, you're in therapy? And now it's perfectly normal when you're having a conversation with someone, be like, oh, I was talking to my therapist about that. And nobody looks at you and goes, oh, are you mentally ill? They go, okay, cool. This person's being candid and honest. Right. So when people now say, yeah, in our prenup, we made sure, well, of course, we're getting married and we have this prenup. That is such a great thing. And by the way, you don't have to tell anybody you have a prenup. Like it's nobody's fucking business if you have a prenup. You and your partner can keep that private or you can share it. I encourage people to share it only because I think the only way we're going to destigmatize prenups is for people to come out about their prenups. Like it drives me nuts because I do a lot of prenuptial agreements for high-end clients, celebrities, athletes. And a lot of them, when they're getting married, it's a spectacle. It's going to be in People magazine. It's going to be in Elle. It's going to be in all these different things. And they've sold the rights to the photos, to the various outlets. And they get interviewed about it and they'll say, oh, well, we know we don't have a prenup because we believe in the marriage. And they're lying. I know they're lying because I wrote the prenup. I have it in my safe.
You've actually witnessed that
happening? Oh, my
God.
Last year alone, I had 4 clients who in public interviews said that they did not have a prenup, and I wrote their prenup and I have their prenup in my safe. And of course, because of attorney-client privilege, of course, I can never disclose that to anybody.
Wow.
And prenups aren't filed anywhere unless the person's getting divorced. And even then, it's part of a sealed matrimonial file, so no one's ever going to know unless somebody leaks it to the press. So the truth is, there's a bunch of people out there who not only say they don't have a prenup and do, but are actively discouraging people from availing themselves of the very technology that they availed themselves of. So
it's like
I just think it's time to cut the bullshit. And same thing. It's exactly like cosmetic surgery, veneers, any of the Botox, any of the things that forever everyone was like, oh no, I just, I ate grilled chicken breasts. That's you had Ozempic and that's okay. Everybody just, let's come out of the closet about this stuff. You didn't use whitening strips. You got veneers. That's okay. It's okay. We all want to look nice. We all want to look healthy. You have every right in the world. It's your body. It's nobody's business what you want to do with with your body. If it makes you feel good about yourself and it doesn't scare the horses, who cares? But it's the same thing with prenups. It's nobody's business but the two of you. But until people start destigmatizing it, it's just going to continue to be something that... So what we tried to do with Trusted Prenup is create a platform where you can, for a very reasonable price, under $1,000, you can have a customized prenup that you and your partner work on together or can work on separately. It is done with the highest levels of legal quality. I did not want to be involved in something that was going to be like a slipshod version of this. I did not want it to be something that was like more of a feel-good thing than legally effective. I wanted to make sure, because I was the legal arm of it. But, technology has advanced so much in recent years, and we have wonderful, tech people working at Trusted Prenup who really, basically took like the most current AI technology and just fed thousands of prenups into this. And they took my whole bank of prenups that I've done over a 25-year career and many of my colleagues, and they just sort of fed all of this information and created this incredibly streamlined, but leveraging technology ability to give people the same quality prenup that you could get for $50,000 for your billionaire client. You can get it for, for less than $1,000, which is really, I think it's going to revolutionize the game. We're already seeing, we're only a few months into the launch of it, and we're already seeing just a massive response. I'm shocked every day when I see the numbers and how they increase every day, and the number of people that are getting these prenups. And we offer, guarantees in terms of like, you can have your money back if you're not satisfied. And I have to tell you, like, the number of people that are getting the prenups and then the feedback we get is so positive. We're just, people are happy with the product. People are happy with the result of what they're getting. And that is very, very gratifying. We really did it because I believe in it as an access to justice issue. I think it's an important, piece of our democracy is access to justice.
Well, I wanted to get into the war stories, but should we save it for next time? Let's end on a high note.
I am happy to come back anytime. It's
yes,
always nice to chat.
I'd love to have you. I'd love to have you. But I do want to tell you, I think Trusted Prenup as a service is so important for people. And
Thanks.
I love that you're making it accessible to like the everyday person.
Well, that was the point. That was the point. I mean, we knew that we could charge a lot more than what we charge. And, it's so funny because I used to get in trouble by my colleagues because I would charge about $3,500 for a prenup. And my colleagues were
right. Is that a lot?
That's nothing. My colleagues would take a $15,000 retainer and work against it at an hourly rate. And I used to say, like, why? Like, you don't need that for a prenup. Like, prenups are not, from a technical standpoint, I'm not saying it's easy to do it yourself, but like an experienced matrimonial attorney knows what to put in and what not to put in and what kind of clauses are going to be suitable for most people. Of course, there's some people that might have very sophisticated finances that are a little bit complicated and nuanced, but it is rare. It is very rare that you need that level of complexity. And, I just think it was one of those things that, well, if we can charge it and people will pay it, let's do it. And we threw that out the window with Trusted Prenup. We just basically said, you know what? I don't care what we could get for it. What is it really going to cost us to do this? Like, what's the lowest price we can offer people and not have it impact the quality in any negative way? And that we're not being piggish about the profit element of this. And I have to tell you, like, we were, when we realized we could get the price point under $1,000, we were thrilled because we said, you know what, this is going to revolutionize the prenup game. It's really going to let this become something accessible to people. And now it's really just about breaking stigma. But I got to tell you, the generation that's coming up in their 20s and their 30s that's getting married now, they are so much more evolved in the way that they approach relationships. They are so much more open to things like prenups. It is just a whole different ballgame, I got to tell you. And I love it. I mean, I have to say, I love it. I'm so gratified by seeing, we have young people every summer who intern at the firm, law students, and they're in their 20s.
Yeah.
And every year I have like a little more hope because I just see how,
because I was losing hope.
Yeah. I think it's easy to lose hope.
Or alpha.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's some things that I still am like their work ethic I wonder about and their tenacity sometimes and their willingness to whine. Yeah. But I got to tell you, like, what every generation, you're going to find some pros and cons, including mine. But what I will say is the way that they question things, I think is really great. Like, I think that they really look at like, yeah, but why do we do it that way? Like, cause tradition in some ways is leaning on the wisdom of generations that came before us. But tradition is also peer pressure exerted by dead people. You know,
people who are living.
Yeah, people who are living who really don't know your life necessarily. Right. You know, so I kind of like that the young generation, the generation in their 20s and early 30s now, is not afraid to go, right, but why? Like, why do we do it that way? And you go, well, because we always did it that way. Right, but why? Like, why? Why do we always do it that way? Because if you say, well, because my great-grandmother did it that way, you know, the world your great-grandmother lived in and the world you live in, if you didn't notice, are really different. The economy they lived in, very different. The information environment they lived in, very different. So why would you assume what was right for them is right for you?
Right.
You know.
Okay.
So I think it's a hopeful thing.
I want to finish with one thing, okay? You wrote a book that calls If You're in My Office, It's Too Late. I don't want to screw up the title, but
If You're in My Office, It's Already Too Late, A Divorce Lawyer's Guide to Staying Together. Yep.
Bestseller. And so end on this note, okay?
Sure.
If you could wrap up one or a few more pieces of advice to keep people out of your office, to keep couples together, what would you say?
Number one is pay attention. Just pay attention. I think people's marriages fall apart the same way that we go bankrupt, very slowly and then all at once. So I think that no single raindrop is responsible for the flood. I think lots of little raindrops make up the flood. And so pay attention. Pay attention to how you're feeling and try to pay attention to how your partner is feeling. And you should feel seen and you want your partner to feel seen. So I would say pay attention is my number one piece. Number two is I think almost all problems in relationships stem from one of two or two of two things. We don't know what we want and we don't know how to ask for what we want. And so I think having honest conversations with yourself about what it is you want, not judging yourself for wanting what you want, not shaming yourself for wanting what you want, but being honest with yourself about what it is you want to feel, what you're yearning for, what you're afraid of, being really honest with yourself about that, and then finding language to share that with your partner. I think those are the big things. And what I try to do in my book, because those are big ideas, is like get more into the specifics of that. Because we think in these generalities, but then we live in the details. You know, like we live in the day to day. And so I don't like when people say to me like, you know, pay attention to your partner. Like, well, I don't know what you mean by that. Like when they're talking, or like, you know, should I take them out? Do we need to do date night? Like, I want to know pragmatically, what are some actual things I can do? You know, I like actionable items. So I really tried to have the book be about real things that we can do to better connect with what we want from our partner and better connect our partner to what we want and better connect to what it is our partner wants from us and needs from us. Because I think that's, you know, like it's really hard to define a good relationship, right?
I was going to ask,
you can spot a shitty one a mile away.
Right.
Like, you know, my mom used to say that it's hard to define intelligence, but she could spot stupid from a mile away. And like, I think it's the same thing. Like, if you look at bad relationships, and we all know someone who's like just in a bad relationship, but when you're around those people, you're like, oh my God, like the stink of it is on them.
Oh yeah.
And a good relationship is kind of just the absence of all the bad stuff, you know? And so I think that sometimes it's easier to define things by their opposite. And so like I have a friend who's a sommelier, and when I was trying to learn about wine, he said to me, you know, the big mistake that people make when they're trying to learn about wine and what wine goes with what food is they try to drink the right wine with the right food. And it's actually so subtle that it's hard to notice. He's like, so the best way to learn is to drink the wrong wine. He's like, so drink a big Cabernet with sushi and you'll see you don't even taste the sushi. Or drink a very light Chardonnay or Pinot Gris with a big ribeye steak. And you're going to see you don't even taste the wine and the acidity is not sufficient. He's like, so when you see the wrong wine, then you'll understand the contrast when you have the right wine.
Sure.
But the right wine is much more subtle. So I guess that's the point. Like for me, I see all these things that go wrong in relationships. By the time you're in my office, you've taken all these wrong turns and you didn't do the preventative maintenance that like kept you out of my office. So all I'm really trying to do is like look at like if you go to a mechanic and say, hey, where do cars break down most often? They'll tell you, oh yeah, the brakes go and then this goes and then that goes. Like this is the order in which cars break down. I just tried to do that when it comes to relationships, because by the time they're in my office, it's so broken that it's really hard to fix it if you can fix it at all. Whereas there's a whole bunch of things you could have done to stay out of my office entirely. You know, my sister's a dentist and she always says to me, by the time you have a toothache, it's like too late. There's a million things she could have done before you had a toothache to help you so you never get a toothache. But by the time you got a toothache, there's not a lot she can do.
I have someone very close in my life who just went through a divorce and said the exact same thing. It was too late. It was just too late. Yeah,
it's too late.
You know,
and we all know that. Look, you know, you and I are both fit people. It's a whole lot easier to stay fit than it is to gain a whole bunch of weight and then try to lose it, right? It's a whole lot easier to just like maintain something, Same thing with relationships. You know, if you're in a happy relationship, it's much easier to maintain happiness than to let it go off a cliff. The two of you get miserable and resentful for each other and then you try to find your way back from the brink. Like that's a lot harder. It's a lot easier to stay connected than to lose connection and then try to reconnect. So if you have connection, if you're marrying someone, you are at a point in your life where you're going, hey, this is as good as it gets, man. We're so connected. Well, let's keep it that way. Let's keep it even when kids show up, even when stress shows up, even when financial stuff shows up, even when, you know, a shiny object or a new person comes around flirting with us, that if we keep that solid connection, don't let that fall apart and then become susceptible to all these other things.
Totally. You know a lot about a lot, from wine to
try.
notes.
I try.
Couples staying together. You're like a therapist meets a divorce attorney. And you give great sound bites. You give
to do it all.
You give great bites. So
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
James Sexton, I really
so great to see you.
And
thank you so
for
much.
Staying up late with us.
Listen, let's do it again sometime for sure.
Okay, war story.
Such a pleasure. Take care. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.